Good afternoon. Thank you for making plans today to attend December's Thirsty Thursday webinar on security glazing for schools. Urmilla Sowell, Technical and Advocacy Director for the National Glass Association, is our presenter today. Urmilla Sowell has 18 years of experience in the fenestration industry. She is the Technical and Advocacy Director for the National Glass Association, with duties that include managing all technical activities within NGA's 4 committees. Prior to joining NGA, Urmilla was employed as Technical Director of the Glass Association of North America, and prior to that, as a testing engineer at Hurricane Test Labs. Urmilla earned both her Bachelor and Master of Science degrees in Civil Engineering from Texas Tech University and is a licensed professional engineer. Urmilla also holds leadership positions and is NGA's liaison and representative on multiple glass and glazing related organizations, including ASHRAE, NCZ 97.1, ASTM, and ISO. Urmilla, welcome.
I hope everyone's able to hear me properly. So going on with our disclaimer, the presentation was developed by the National Glass Association, and this disclaimer is made by NGA, who is the provider. The provider shall not be held liable for any improper or incorrect use of the materials or information described and or contained in this presentation, and assumes no responsibility for any user's use of it. In no event shall the provider be liable for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, exemplary, or consequential damages, including but not limited to procurement or substitute goods for services, loss of use of profits, or business interruption. However, caused and any theory of liability, whether in contract, strict liability, or tort, including negligence or otherwise, arising in and any way out of the use of this presentation or materials and information herein, even if advised of the possibility of such damage. This disclaimer of liability applies to any damages or injury, including but not limited to those caused by any failure of performance, error, omission, interruption, deletion, defect, or other cause of action. That's a long one, I know. So today, the learning objectives for this webinar is to identify threats to school, understand the function of schools, identify test standards and code requirements for school security, understand current glazing options, and update on industry activities. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. If you guys can go ahead and put yourselves on mute, and that would help us get along further. So a little bit of background. So the first recorded shooting was actually in July of 1794. No, that is not a typo. It was actually 223 years ago in Pontiac's Rebellion School, which at that time, it was a massacre for 10 killed. Today's massacres, or with Sandy Hook, has been one of the deadliest with 27 killed, and Virginia Tech had over 30. But there were 2 areas there. So a couple things to note: shootings are recorded globally. School attacks are rarely sudden and impulsive, and others usually know the attacker's plan before they attack. This chart that you see on the screen is by Everytown Research Organization. They've been capturing data since 2013, and they have captured that there has been 382 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, 87 of which was in 2018. To give an overview, how many times per year does a gun go off in an American school? So last spring of 2018, the United States Education Department published a report that says in the school year of 2015 and 2016, meaning August of 2015, through June, at end of June of 2016, there was nearly 240 schools, of which it was reported that either one, there was at least one incident involving a school-related shooting. I don't know about you, but the school year from that time, I don't recall 240 incidents. And so there was an NPR did a report on this, and they were looking into this published report and had some questions about this. The survey, which was done by the Civil Rights Data Collection for U.S. Education, required that nearly 96,000 public schools answer the question. The survey question was, has there been at least one incident at your school that involved a shooting regardless of whether anyone was hurt? Of which 240, or 0.2% of all schools said yes. If you look at the data that NPR kind of looked into further, you can see that 161 of those schools or districts reported to NPR that no school shooting had actually occurred in that time period. 37 alone in Cleveland reported that that number was intended for the previous item in the data collection, as in they answered the question incorrectly, or they put it in a different response. In California, the school district misreported those numbers by 26. Of 240, only 11 was confirmed independently by NPR that actually had some type of school security incident. They also used the Everytown data research that I had showed on the previous slide, of which Everytown in that same time frame had 29 incidents. There was only 8 that were on both the NPR research as well as the Everytown research. So what's going on? How come these numbers are so vastly different? It's just the survey materials, and so because the survey comes out with so many of them, in 2018 alone, there's been 53 new school safety laws that were passed in many different states. Districts are spending millions of dollars to harden schools with security measures and equipment. Children are spending class time on active shooter drills, meaning that they have to go lockdown procedures. Parents are buying bulletproof backpacks. So let's talk about the schools itself, the actual building. It's not just for teaching children. Many schools are used for shelters, command centers, or meeting places in times of crisis. In hurricane-prone zones, usually when there's a hurricane approaching, you set up many cots and people are able to come and ride out the storm in a school as a shelter. Many of the voting and polling activities occur at a school. As consequently, ensuring the safety of the students, the faculty and staff in our school during the school days, as well as the safety of the school buildings themselves, is incredibly important. So back in 2012, Homeland Security published a primer to design safe school projects in case of terror attacks and school shootings. In this document, it's an incredibly long document, and there's a link to where you're able to get all of these references. So it discusses the potential targets of schools. So school attackers typically choose their targets to maximize the impact with minimum effort. Schools are apparently an easy target. And for a successful attack might produce the greatest effect. And what is success to an attacker? The success is to induce psychological shock and instill fear. Many Americans feel that schools should be the safest place our children can be, perhaps even safer than their own homes. There are about 75 million students that are in public schools in the United States. So security is not a standalone issue. It is a critical design consideration that should be continually reviewed from the design phase through the construction and the retrofit into building use. So that begs to ask the question, how secure are our schools? So some of you know some of these answers. So most of our schools are around 40 to 50 years old. So the average right now is about 44, and of course, every time that the National Center for Educational Statistics run these numbers, they change. But they had that 28% of schools were built before 1950. 45% were built between 1950 and 1969. So those in the glazing industry and VZ97, Voluntary Safety Glazing Standard, was created in 1966. So if you can look at the dates there, you can realize that some of these schools did not have any glazing standards when they were built. How about CPSC 16 CFR, which is the federal mandate for safety glazing that was adopted in 1977. So before 1977, unless it was built voluntarily, there was no security glazing. So let's talk codes. The International Building Codes, Chapter 24, is all about glass and glazing. That's where a majority of everything that technologies and industry, the glazing industry, look to in the codes. So it discusses safety glazing, which is to minimize cutting or piercing injuries. Glass and laminated glass, so wired glass is not permitted. And it talks about CPSC, which is equivalent now to ANSI. In Chapter 24, it also has about safe sloped glazing and skylights, which is required to be laminated. And glass railings, tempered or heat-strengthened laminated glass is required. Of course, there are some exceptions. So in building codes, it says walkways, elevator hoistways, and elevator cars has to be laminated glass as well. What's missing is that there are no requirements for security glazing. The only security glazing reference in IBC is for fire section in the 408.7. So designing of safer schools. The FEMA Guidelines, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, discuss the different layers for campus sites, as you can see on the chart here. The first or outer layer has natural or man-made barriers. Pretty much this is your curb, your sidewalk, a fence, or some type of engineered standoff. Your second layer of defense, your playground, your exterior around, your shrubbery, and all of that items that are around the school. And then the last layer, or the third or inner layer, starts with the building envelope. This is where we come in as an industry. When you're looking for, within the FEMA guidelines, if you look at this chart, it says the glazed areas, the window should be oriented perpendicular to the primary building facade, whereas the primary facade is a street level. So that way, if there's an attacker coming, you know, it will not be as easy access. They'll have to come and go around. So the primary building facade is on the street side. And though FEMA is not anti-glass, or they're not trying to limit the use of glazing in the building, they actually, in the FEMA guidelines, it actually says that well-lit classrooms are safer, and natural light does not depend on a power source. So it's not like they can cut the power and you can't see anything. So they're actually saying that you should have well-lit classrooms. And they said to consider using burglary or ballistic resistant glazing in high-risk school areas. How do they define high-risk school areas? It's a school that's located closer to a highway system, railway system, so that we can have easy access to escape. And they also say consider using laminated glass instead of conventional glass. Within this primer, it also states that place windows away from the doors, so that way you can't break a window and then you're able to unlock the door from the inside. It also talks about horizontal windows should be 6 feet above the finished floor, so that we can't jump a window as well. And then consider using steel window frames, securely fastened or cement grouted into the surrounding structure. That way you just can't kick down the door or window. So let's discuss the difference between safety and security. Safety glazing is a protection against accidental human impact, protection against falling glass due to natural causes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wind loads, flying debris, etc. Safety standards or safety is code driven. So these are the building codes, they're written in there, you must follow them. Security, on the other hand, is protection against forced entry. Ballistics, it's blast. It's to protect the envelope and slow down or deter entry. These are voluntary standards. Nobody tells you you have to do them. Somebody actually has to ask for security measures. So what are some of the forced entry standards? Again, voluntary. You have some ASTM standards as well as HP White and UL, and it talks about the blunt and sharp impacts. A thermal attack, where it comes to heating and cooling, having a torch to try to get into the building. And also, HP White has an additional ballistics on top of ball peen hammers, sledgehammers, rocks being thrown, etc., and baseball bats. ASTM 2395, it's an actual systems test. So it's not just the glass, it's the windows and doors system. They have different tools to attack the framing, like a crowbar, pry bar, trying to get the glazing out of the frame system. And it also has a missile impact for the glazing itself, which is a 3.75 pound missile going at 34 miles an hour. The bullet resistance standards, again, voluntary. UL, NIJ, and WMFL, they have ballistics as well as force entry. So you shoot at the glass at different levels and different categories, and then after that, you try to use a hammer or some type of a sharp object to try to still get through into the glazing. You have blast resistance standards. Again, voluntary standards. A couple of ASTM standards. You have GSA, Department of Defense, as well as International Standards Organization. You have shock tube testing, as well as arena testing for glass. With all of the different types of glazing that protects against several of these threats, realize that your glazing also has different additional features. You have acoustical performance for noisy areas, aesthetics, of course you can see through, bring light through, energy efficiency, UV protection, and solar performance. So what are some of the different considerations that we have out there on the marketplace? We have tempered glass. Safety tempered glass offers safety and daylighting. We have single light with film or plastic. That gives you a little bit of force entry, some blast, some safety, and daylighting. As we can go through these slides, you'll see that I list daylighting on all of them, because where it comes to schools and daylighting, there's studies that have been shown to where it's a 21-point jump for kids who are able to have daylighting and access to daylighting. They're more focused and they're more aware. So on laminated glass, we have enhanced force entry, enhanced blast, enhanced safety, containment when the glass is broken, hurricane, and enhanced acoustical, as well as daylighting. We have laminated insulating glass units, both asymmetrical, as the figure on your left, that shows that it's just one single light with a laminated piece of glass on the inside. And then you have the symmetrical IGUs, where you have two pieces of laminated. And you're able to have enhanced force entry, enhanced blast, enhanced safety, containment when broken, hurricane impact, enhanced acoustical, energy efficiency, as well as daylighting. Now getting into the multiple plies, you have the plastic inner layers as well as the other inner layers. You have different many pieces of glass and multiple inner layers. So enhanced force entry, enhanced blast, enhanced safety, containment when broken, ballistics, hurricane and tornado protection, enhanced acoustical, as well as daylighting. So with all of these different glazing on the marketplace, and knowing the state of the industry where we are with school security, there has been an outcry as to how do we deal with this. And so here are some of the public responses to these threats. There are more security guards, police visits to school at random times. There's surveillance cameras within schools, alarm systems being put in, security glazing in doors and windows, physical barriers. There's discussion of arming teachers for this, bullet-resistant backpack inserts. There's also hardening of the door itself, hardware frame replacement, which can get bulkier as you start to look into bullet resistance, replacing windows and doors with enhanced glazing, adding bars and grills to existing windows, and adding window films. Some of the industry initiatives, it's a focus on products for delaying entry, which allows first responders the time. So more of your, laminated and filmed products, to where once an attacker approaches the school, as they're trying to get in, it's not just easy to just walk right in. So it gives you the time for the school also to react and go through their lockdown procedures. So it's not just bullet-resistant glazing. There are also many enhanced high-performance laminated and film products that are very effective in slowing down the intruders and gives you the time to react. There are many of the NGA members that have products on the market that can go anywhere from bullet-resistant all the way to just a retrofit as well. So what are different standards and codes and association initiatives? NFPA has a standard for an active shooter or hostile event response program. These are live links to where, if you're interested, you're able to click on these. The ASTM just now started a new mitigation of armed aggressors in educational institution that is combined with the committee F12, which is security, as well as E54, which is homeland security. Their second meeting will be in January, the end of January in Houston. I will be attending that meeting. ICC, International Codes Committee, has an ad hoc committee on building safety and security in which they're looking at not just the glazing, they're talking about fire code requirements as well as safety and security. One of the items to note is that when, especially I think it was the Florida case, when you pull the fire alarm, it automatically unlocks the doors. So even if you do have safety glazing and bullet-resistant glazing, if you pull a fire alarm, you're able to walk right in. So the ICC is looking at all of these different segments of the industry, looking at hardware manufacturers, as well as glazing, as well as fire marshals, etc. And we do have a code consultant who is monitoring that and is part of that. The Glazing Industry Code Committee is also working through our code consultant to keep an eye on ICC and how we may help them. NGA, of course, have glass information bulletins and presentations. Some additional activities for NGA, we have a Glass Magazine article that has a link there, was published, I think, last year during annual conference in January 2019. We have a fabricating committee, which will be looking at updating the school security information bulletin that we have. The Architect's Guide to Protective Glazing series will start in May within Glass Magazine, and several of the manuals and glass information bulletins and AIA presentations are on the website, the TechStreet website, that has the bullet-resistant glazing, GIB, detention glazing, protective glazing 101 AIA presentation, as well as the protective glazing manual and the laminated glazing reference manual. Additional references that was used here, and these are also live links, is the primer that I was talking to you about earlier between the Department of Homeland Security as well as FEMA, and the NPR article that discussed that one timeline on how many schools shooting that there was and questioned it, and then the Everytime research data that talks about that tracks all of this. And then, of course, you have the U.S. Department of Education's their data collection information. So conclusions, schools, not just for kids and teachers, it's a structure that needs to be functional. School security threats and attacks are unpredictable. It can happen anytime. Usually somebody knows about it before it happens. Definitely need to speak up about that. Security glazing of the exterior envelope is critical to help provide reaction time for the occupants as well as first responders. And there's a definite need for building codes to engage all stakeholders and to ensure that the building is secure. With that, I would like to thank many of our members who have offered assistance in this presentation and have certainly given me some of their photos, etc. So thank you all, and if you have questions, I will take them.
All right, I have unmuted all of the participants. If you don't have a question, we'd appreciate you muting yourself. Again, if you do have questions, please feel free to share them now.
And if not, for sure, you have my email address and my telephone number, so please feel free to contact me anytime. I appreciate your time very much on today's Thirsty Thursday.
Hey, Urmilla, Rob Paul from here. Have you, any studies that have said anything in regards to like the average response time of police to a school shooting?
Yes, I've heard anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes up to 10 minutes, depending on where the school is located and which areas. Some more rural areas, they're not as, they're very far away. So it depends. There's not an exact time frame for specifics on that. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much,
in the
Urmilla,
chat. Oh, sorry, Sarah. There's one question in the chat that says, "Is it possible to receive a copy of this presentation?" Yes, this will be posted, and it will be sent out and posted on our website. Go ahead, Sarah.
Excellent. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending.